And welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. What a treat to welcome back as we talk about radio history, Mr. Lynn McDowell. Good morning, Lynn.
Oh, my goodness. This is like the Sunrise Show with Lynn and Susie.
A little later in the morning, though, thank goodness.
So, how's everybody in the wonderful city of Canton?
Well, Canton is, we're like everybody. We're all going through this coronavirus thing together.
Yeah.
Let's start there. How's that affected your life? How are you doing?
Oh, my goodness. We have had, everybody knows, not those who do not know, I have been in Charlotte, North Carolina for a while, and spent some time in radio down here for about 3 years. And as far as COVID, it's pretty much done here what it's done around the rest of the country, although some things seem to be loosening up just a little bit in the area. Restaurants have pretty much opened up back up, almost some to 50 to 75% capacity. But what excites me, Susie, is that the church that we attend, which is Greater Life Church, it's an Assembly of God church here in town, we have had at least 75% capacity over the last several Sundays. People are coming back. They're worshiping God again together, and it's very, very exciting for what's going on here.
Absolutely. As we're supposed to be talking about November next month, is 100 years of commercial radio, and you've had it in your blood for almost all 100 of those years. So
yeah, 100, by 97 of those years, I feel like it sometimes. Yeah, it's been a little over 25 years for me, Susie.
Isn't that something?
And I have done just about everything there can be done in radio, starting way back into the mid-'70s when I was at WCMX-FM in Fort Wayne, Indiana, playing gospel music in the mornings there. Transitioning to Laurinburg, North Carolina, back to Canton, and points in between. My latest step was back at WBT Radio here in Charlotte, which is the oldest AM radio station in the South. They refer to themselves as the blowtorch of all things, but they are celebrating going into their 100th year.
Wow.
I mean, they've been around as long as radio has been here, and I still have some wonderful, wonderful friends over there. And I'm out of radio right now, just kind of laying back in a semi-retired state. But, you never know what the Lord's going to do as far as opening doors.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
You've gotten to do talk radio as well as music radio, different programs and formats of music. Do you have a favorite?
Oh, my goodness. It's funny because so many people still remember my days when I was over at WHBC.
Absolutely.
And when I go around sometimes when we come back home, people recognize the name. They recognize my voice especially.
Yes.
And talk radio was fun. I remember that when I was working there and they said, well, you're going to host a late-night talk show called Viewpoint. And I said, what's Viewpoint? No clue. Absolutely, positively out of the ballpark for me. But I was on that for 3.5 years and then transitioned into some more community radio there. And then the 2 wonderful years that you and I spent together there at WNPQ. Yeah, I feel like I've been around the track about 237,000 times.
You've gotten to do an awful lot of fun things. A lot of it is while you were doing radio started changing a lot. I think probably with the internet, suddenly you didn't have the anonymity because everybody knew what you looked like because they could go online and see that. And then there got to be more and more remotes, like lots of remotes. And we got to go a lot of places and do a lot of things. Any of that come to mind? And let's reminisce a bit. Any of those stand out?
Oh my goodness! Let me backtrack again to my early days in Fort Wayne.
Yes.
When the FM studio there was literally a hand-built studio. The board was wooden.
Wow.
I mean, it was just basically thrown together with balsa wood and super glue. And as the years have progressed over the years, I've got into more technologically advanced studios. And, like you said, we were voices behind the mic. Everybody would say, well, you don't look like you sound.
You don't look like you sound. Exactly.
Well, how am I supposed to look then? With
exactly.
I've never been able to hear a straight answer on that one. But yeah, I mean, what has happened is, like you just mentioned, Susie, the internet has really changed the whole genre of radio. Not only the internet, but now we have Sirius XM radio.
Right.
And if you want a genre of radio, find it. It's probably there. And this is what has happened to the whole industry.
Yeah. We've gotten to see a lot of changes. You've gotten to be involved in some very cool projects, one of them being recording the entire Bible. Was it the whole Bible or New Testament?
Yeah, the New Testament, the American Standard Version, about 5 years ago. It was an 8-month project for me, and I still have it on MP3. And unfortunately, the company that I did it for got out of that business.
No.
But I am still in possession of the MP3s of every one of the books that I recorded. Again, the entire New Testament. And I am looking for somebody out there that can help me out and that we can get this thing back in the market. And I just want my voice to be able to bless others. And not so much my voice, but the Word of God to be able to bless others.
There's got to be somebody listening saying, you mean this already exists? It's been done? That all they'd have to do is underwrite getting it out there again and produced? Because it's all produced, correct?
Right.
With music and your voice and everything. Yep. Tell me about the experience of doing that. There's got to be really something about voicing the Word of God.
Oh, my goodness. Like I said, it took me 8 months to do that. And at about 2 hours, 3 hours at a time, and I really had to pace myself because of keeping my voice sounding fresh. And it was exciting for me to be able to do that and get into areas of the New Testament that I had not been in for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the very final day that I recorded Revelation chapter 21.
Whoa.
I'm thinking, my goodness, am I done?
Yes, and then you start seeing it unfold before your very eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll tell the listeners too, Susie, if you want a CD volume of that, my dear friends over at Trinity Gospel Temple, Brother Dave Lombardi, they should have some in the bookstore over there.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Lynn, I just don't want to leave this topic quite yet. As you were recording that and something about saying it out loud and going through the entire New Testament.
Oh, my.
Did you receive any fresh insights that you just had not ever noticed before?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I could talk about, and I you want to say you got a favorite book of the Bible, but one of my favorite books is the book of Acts, and I just felt like I was walking right along with the Apostle Paul, with Peter, with Silas, and, walking next to them as I was reading that. And the experiences that they lived and getting out there to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ. And, it was really, that was a special experience for me.
Yeah. Since you mentioned Acts, let's talk about second chapter of Acts some folks that are very meaningful to you. You had the flashback show, and you had so many. Throughout that, you got to talk to so many people that were pioneers in Christian radio.
I am tearing up just as we're talking about that because, again, that's something that I am really earnestly praying about right now, of reviving that again. But yeah, let's talk about the flashback show. The interviews that I had with people like Ohio's own Phil Kagi, the second chapter of Acts, Randy Stonehill, Brian Duncan, all of the members of Petra, who by the way are in Fort Wayne this weekend at a reunion concert of the Adam's Apple Jesus Center there.
Wow.
That's going on as we're recording this. That's what's going on. But all these great artists and the lives that they shared with me, and the music that they wrote was just simply from the heart.
Yes. What was different back then?
Oh my goodness! It was a longing for freshness within what our generation was looking for. It goes right back to the days with Pastor Chuck Smith out in California with the Calvary Chapel out there.
Yes.
And Calvary Chapel has an interesting history. They went from like 200 members in the beginning to like over 100,000 within a year's time. And Pastor Chuck's ministry has really lent itself in areas all over the country. We've got people like Richie Furay, who was a member of some of the mainstream rock bands like Buffalo Springfield. He played with Poco, and he is now a retired pastor. And he still keeps in touch with those who were part of that generation, our generation.
That's exactly right. But it had to be a weird thing. And did you get any sense from them what it was like to go into Christian music when there were not Christian music stations? There weren't any radio stations for them to be trying to market, come up with some kind of a product. They were just singing their hearts, weren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And Susie, I remember an interview you and I had with Annie Herring.
Oh, yeah.
And Annie, who was the keyboardist and really the front voice for the second chapter of Acts, and an album that they recorded back in the early 70s called To the Bride. It was second chapter of Acts, Barry McGuire, and a band called David. And on that album, and I brought that up to Annie that day that you and I spoke with her, how they were out there paving roads where there were no roads.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
And
do you remember what she said? Do you remember what her response was? Why they went that direction? Because you think of, oh my goodness, some people like Barry McGuire, they had a great career going in mainstream music, but this is what they wanted to sing.
Yeah, and it's just simply Jesus. They gave their hearts to Jesus. Their music was transformed. It became a whole different expression for them as far as their own hearts and souls were concerned.
But you had
and they were, and it was the music was structured. It was music. It was very harmonic, very melodic, and very singable as far as you and I as listeners.
And sometimes it was an old hymn just put to maybe a little more of a rock sound to it. But you had to go to a music festival to hear it. You had to buy the albums to hear it. It was almost an underground movement.
Yeah. And I remember one day, and again, I revert back to Fort Wayne only because that is where I got my first full-time position in radio there at WCMX-FM. The guys from Petra, who were from Fort Wayne, came into the studios one day with their very first album. It was the self-titled album, Petra, and they wanted to, hey, you can give us a few spins on this, that'd be fine. And at the time, the station format was basically Bill Gaither, and Bill Gaither.
Sure.
Yeah. And those guys came in. And also, one of the other, the First Lady of Jesus music, Honey Tree, was also from the same church that they were from there in Fort Wayne. And I've had an opportunity to meet Honey Tree and, like I said, the guys from Petra. You and I have had, when we were doing the Sunrise Show in studio with Matthew Ward.
Right.
We had Dan Ruppel. Head of Isaac Air Freight, Christian comedy.
Yes.
Where in the world was that genre? There wasn't. It wasn't there.
Right.
I mean, you were almost sacrilege if you thought, as a Christian, you had to laugh.
That's right. Do you remember the kerfluffle that happened when Rise Again won the Dove Award?
Yeah.
That was the Dove Award-winning Song of the Year. Yeah. And it was like, and you listen to it now, and it's so beautiful, but it was considered just rock and roll at the time.
Oh, yeah. And I remember interviewing Dallas Holm about that, and he said that song was on number one on 3 different charts for 48 weeks, not 48 days.
Yeah, wow. Wow, almost all year.
And here's the crazy thing about it, Susie. He wrote that song within 10 minutes.
Oh, man. When the Spirit's moving, the Spirit is moving, and you just get out of the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So cool. So cool. We are speaking with Lynn McDowell. We are flashing back ourselves since we're talking to the flashback man here, and have to take a short break. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community. Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with the one and only Lynn McDowell, talking about a little bit of radio history as we're getting ready to celebrate 100 years of commercial radio. Wow. And you've done it all. You really, truly have done it all. You've done some other things, too. I would be remiss if I didn't just mention this, only because I think it's so cool. You were doing some work for, was it NASCAR? And you got to work right side by side the other brother, Daryl?
Yep.
You got to tell me all about it.
Okay, well, anybody who was a big fan of the Newhart Show, not the first one, but the second one, where Bob Newhart was the manager of that resort or whatever it was there in Stanford.
The little inn, yes.
And there were 3 characters on that show, Larry, my brother Daryl, and the other brother Daryl. Well, the other brother Daryl and I are now very, very good friends. His name is John Volstad. He was the actor that played that role on there. And John is he's one of the nicest guys that you could possibly talk to, and he has shared so much with me about his days in Hollywood, and he's just an ordinary average guy.
It had to be so weird to hear him talk. Was it?
Yeah. Well,
my goodness, you have a voice.
Well, I'll tell you, in the 2 years that I was at the Hall, I remember when I first became aware of John being an employee there and a coworker, and the guy said, somebody told me, yeah, he was on Newhart. I said, what? He said, yeah, he was the other brother Daryl. And over a period of time, John and I have communicated. In fact, we share each other's phone numbers and text messages every so often. But God brings people into your life for a reason.
Right.
He does it, first of all, I think, in order for you to bless that person.
Yes.
And to be open to them and show them that God loves them, and you just want to embrace them. Whether they're believers or non-believers, you've got to be Jesus Christ to them.
Did you get those kinds of opportunities with John?
I've been able to share a few things with him.
That's so cool.
Over the time, yeah. And again, we stay in touch.
Yeah.
And I have all intentions of continue to stay in touch with him.
Yes. Has he shared with you how funny it would have been to have a part in a long-running series, a very popular series, where all you do is walk into a room and the crowd goes wild, and you say nothing, and then you turn around and leave again, and that's it. And that's it. That is, and I understand they were not allowed to speak in public that whole time that they were those roles.
Yeah. Right.
Did he talk about that at all with you? Did he share?
He never really had an opportunity to share that portion with me. But he was telling me that on the very final episode, if those of us who remember how it ended.
Best ending ever of any TV series.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with you. They did not know as a cast until 20 minutes what they were going to have before they started to film.
So they kept it a secret from even the cast.
And Suzanne Plachette, who was the surprise guest there at the end of that show, had actually had a conversation with Bob Newhart's wife saying, what would you think about this kind of an ending?
Yeah.
I mean, it is so funny and so cool that they just threw that curveball at everybody at the end of that episode.
I'd heard that. I heard that this was all Bob Newhart's wife's idea.
Right.
And they kept that a secret. They kept that under wraps, and they knew they were going to do it. They always knew. Yeah. How fun to bring back have it all be a dream.
and like I said, God brings people into your lives just for not only you to bless them, but you get a blessing from them.
Yes.
You get to share lives, and we as believers, Susie, we've got to remain open to those opportunities. We really do.
If we keep our antenna up, we need to be just aware of how is God using me today, and just be watching for those opportunities.
Exactly.
Tell me your perspective, really, going along that same line of the power of radio to be able to do that. You have an opportunity, if you take it seriously, to reach so many people all at one time and to share with so many.
Yeah, well, the thing is, first of all, of radio, you can take it just about anywhere. You can't do that with television. Mm-hmm. You can listen to your radio in a park. You can listen to it with iPods now and in your car. But radio, over the 100 years it's been around, has just been an absolute unique medium for people to receive information. And again, kind of reverting back, full circle for me in my life as to where I have started and where radio has become. My main concern is that the mom and pop stations are just being swallowed up by the big corporations. Mm-hmm. And our dearly departed owner of WNPQ, Jim Natoli,
yes.
he was the last of a breed of family ownerships. And I just, when you have that opportunity to do that and not get swallowed up by the big guys out there, do it. I mean, my goodness, it's going to be tough, but the corporate entity that has taken over radio is, I think, in a way, is almost ruining the medium because good people are losing their jobs. Formats change. Things change within the realm of a radio station's structure, and like I said, the family ownerships. I hope that they can hang on for as long as they can. I really do.
When you think of the new technology, you were mentioning podcasts and whatnot. It seems that there are opportunities for more people to become, what do they call it, influencers? To become influencers by having,
Right.
I'm going to have my own podcast or I'm going to have my own YouTube channel and so forth. What are your thoughts on that and the way it seems to be going?
Oh my. Well, I happen to have worked with somebody at WBT here in Charlotte who has his own podcast now, a gentleman by the name of Keith Larson. He was on the morning show over there. And my sweetheart, Terry, keeps saying, Lynn, why don't you do a podcast?
Sure. Yeah.
If you're not going to be in the business itself, hey, you can take the business to the people.
Right. Exactly.
The
There's more opportunities.
Yeah, and the technology is there and it's available to you.
I agree with Terry. I think you should be doing one. For anybody who has not had the pleasure of waking up at 3 a.m. and going into a studio and do a morning show, talk to me about that experience.
Wow! Oh boy, you sleep in shifts first of all, and you're eating a lot of donuts and drinking a lot of coffee at about 6 o'clock in the morning. That's when I put on all kinds of weight there at WNPQ.
Oh dear,
we were on that morning show. But it is. You wake up with the mindset, and you had to do this on a daily basis. Okay, I'm going in there. I'm going to turn on the microphone. We're going to spin the records. We're going to give the news. We're going to be informational. We're going to entertain the audience. And through that, we are going to make somebody's day and to try to put a smile on their face.
Mm-hmm. Get them off to a good start.
Yeah, and I know when you and I had the Sunrise show there, the light, we had a blast with it.
It was fun.
We absolutely had a blast.
I don't want, okay, my next question is going to sound like I'm asking for a compliment. I'm not. Tell me the highlights of your career, Lynn. I timed that. I kind of timed that one funny. Okay, the Sunrise show aside, tell me highlights of your career.
Oh, the highlights of my career.
Yeah,
oh, gosh.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I'm so thankful that in those early days there in Indiana that I was given the opportunity to have a morning show where I could go on. And let me share something unique about what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
I would go into the studios there to begin the show preparation. It was a mixture of a lot of music, a lot of ministry programs. But guess who was the man that was on the air when I'd walk in?
Who?
Dr. David Jeremiah.
Really?
Yeah.
In the room?
He was in the room. He was the pastor of the Black Hawk Baptist Church there in Fort Wayne at the time, and he had a show on the radio station 5 days a week. Sometimes he'd be recording a whole week's worth of shows because of his travel schedule, and a lot of times he was in there live, and we'd have an opportunity to share a lot of things briefly and face-to-face, and then he'd go on and to his church duties.
Mm.
Yeah, that was one of the highlights.
Yes,
for me.
That would be impactful.
Right. And then swinging back around, coming full circle back to Canton, in my days at WHBC, I was on the evening show there for a while, the afternoon show. And when I was given the opportunity back in the late 80s to become the master of ceremonies for the Blue Coats Drum Corps for Innovations in Brass,
wow,
that to me is one of the pinnacles of what I've done. It was an outgrowth of my time in radio.
Okay, I need to really piggyback onto this.
Okay.
You're one of the very first graduates of the music technology program from Malone University, and that's been very meaningful to you. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, it has been. And, I was one of the first 3 grads, along with 2 of my classmates, Tim Dentler and Matt Bostatter. We were really guinea pigs as far as that program was concerned, and I felt very privileged to be a part of the history there at Malone University as far as studying that program. And I was very heartbroken to hear of late that they've eliminated the program.
Yeah. Well, you're out there representing now. What is commercial music technology?
It's basically music production, getting into the studio, learning how to record artists using recording equipment, which at the time, as we were getting into with a man who I consider a very dear friend, Mr. George Payne, who was the instructor there at Malone for the program, we were into the analog system at that time, and then the digital transition began to manifest itself around 1995, and I graduated in 96. But it was what has happened over the years in this whole area is that it actually helped the transition. It helped me to work into radio better because it taught me how to record people, how to mix voices, and to do all that. And that was really one of the great things that I was able to learn as I was recording the New Testament.
Jumping back into this idea, this bug in your ear that I'm going to continue to try and put more bugs in your ear. If you were going to do a podcast, what would it be?
Oh, I would definitely do another flashback show.
Yeah. Who would you ask? Because as you're flashing back now in 2020 is different than flashing back. Would you still flash all the way back to the 1970s? Would there be some music in between there that you found particularly good?
Absolutely.
You have more to flash back to now, I'm saying.
Now, again, I'm going to refer to Sirius XM radio right now, which, like I said, has channels. They go all the way back to the 40s, the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, my gosh, why not do this with the Pioneer radio, the Pioneer artists? We have Sirius XM 63, which is the Message. That's the newer artist. But there's nothing on there for your and I's generation to be able to listen to the second chapter of Acts, to Phil Keaggy, to Randy Stonehill, to Larry Norman, these artists. Well, I mean, why not? It could be on there. It could very well be on there.
Well, maybe it just will be. I knew that this time was going to fly by, but I hope, let's end on that note, and let's hope that note means that we're going to be able to hear some of this great music very, very soon. Brought to us by Lynn McDowell. Lynn, thank you so much for joining us on Our Community.
It's been a blast. Like I said, it's like the Sunrise Show all together again.